She stared at the black credit card in her hands. Callahan Reed, CEO. No spending limit. Her sister was dying. $62,000 in medical debt. One swipe could save everything. Keely closed her eyes. This card could save her sister's life. But she made a choice that night that shocked even a billionaire. But what she did next, and what happened when this billionaire found out the truth, will absolutely shock you to the bones. Because sometimes one choice, made in your darkest moment, can change absolutely everything. Watch till the end, you won't believe how this ends. The overhead lights at Mason's diner buzzed like angry wasps as Keely Morgan wiped down table 7 for the third time that hour. Her apron was stained with ketchup and coffee. Her feet screamed inside worn sneakers that should have been replaced months ago. But replacement shoes cost money, and money was something Keely simply didn't have. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday, and the dinner rush had finally died down. Only 3 tables remained occupied. A couple arguing quietly in the corner booth, an elderly man nursing his 5th cup of decaf, and a stranger in an expensive charcoal suit who looked deeply out of place in this part of Phoenix. Keely had noticed him the moment he walked in. Everything about him screamed wealth. The watch on his wrist probably cost more than her rent for an entire year. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. Even the way he sat, straight-backed and alert, suggested someone accustomed to commanding rooms. But his face told a different story. There were shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world, or at least a very heavy briefcase. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" Keely asked, approaching his table with her best customer service smile, the one that hid her exhaustion and the constant worry gnawing at her insides. He glanced up, and for just a moment, their eyes met. His were a startling shade of gray, like storm clouds before rain. "Just the check, please," he said. His voice was deep, clipped, professional. "Of course." Keely placed the bill on the table and started to turn away. "Wait." He pulled out his wallet, extracted a black credit card that gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and handed it to her. "Keep the change." When Keely processed the payment and saw he'd left a $50 tip on a $23 meal, her throat tightened. Tips like that didn't happen often at Mason's diner, where most customers counted their pennies as carefully as she did. "Thank you so much, sir," she managed, her voice thick with genuine gratitude. "This really means a lot." He nodded once, already standing, gathering his briefcase. Within seconds, he was gone, the bell above the door chiming his departure. Keely clutched the receipt, blinking back tears. $50. That was groceries for a week. That was the electric bill she'd been dreading. That was hope, tangible and real. She began clearing his table, stacking dishes with practiced efficiency. That's when she saw it. Wedged between the salt shaker and the napkin dispenser was another card. Same glossy black finish. Same raised gold lettering. Callahan Reed, CEO, Reed Financial Group. Her heart stopped. He'd left his credit card. Not just any credit card, from the looks of it, his primary one. The kind of card that probably had no spending limit, that opened doors and bought dreams. Keely picked it up with trembling fingers. The plastic was warm from where it had been sitting. She turned it over, saw the security code on the back, the signature strip. For one brief, dangerous moment, she let herself imagine. Her sister's medical bills, nearly $60,000 and climbing. Her mother's broken-down car that they couldn't afford to fix. The community college tuition she'd had to abandon when life got too hard, too expensive, too impossible. This card could solve everything. Her fingers tightened around it. Just one transaction. Just enough to keep her sister alive, to give her mother transportation to work, to give herself a chance at the future she'd always wanted. The moment stretched. The diner was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant clatter of pots in the kitchen. Then Keely thought of her father. He died when she was 12, but his voice still echoed in her memory, clear as yesterday. "Keely girl, when you're faced with a choice between easy and right, remember, easy is temporary, but right is forever." She released a shaky breath and slipped the card into her apron pocket. Not to use, to return. "You okay, hon?" Marlene, The night manager called from behind the counter. She was a heavy-set woman with kind eyes and a smoker's rasp. "Yeah," Keely lied. "Just tired." The rest of her shift passed in a blur. By the time she clocked out at midnight, every muscle in her body ached. She changed out of her uniform in the cramped employee bathroom, caught sight of her reflection, pale face, dark circles, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and barely recognized herself. At 26, she looked 10 years older. That's what poverty did. It aged you from the inside out. On the bus ride home to her neighborhood in South Phoenix, Keely pulled out the credit card and studied it. Callahan Reed. She'd heard that name before. Reed Financial Group was one of the biggest investment firms in the Southwest. The man she'd served wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful, connected, the kind of person who could destroy her life with a single phone call if he thought she'd stolen from him. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Violet's fever is back, taking her to urgent care. Don't worry, don't worry," as if that were possible. Violet, her 19-year-old sister, had been fighting leukemia for 2 years. Each treatment cost a fortune. Their insurance covered some of it, but not nearly enough. The debt was crushing them slowly, methodically, like a vice tightening one turn at a time. Keely closed her eyes and pressed her forehead against the cool bus window. The city lights of Phoenix streaked past, a blur of neon and shadow. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would find a way to return the card. But tomorrow came with its own problems. Before we continue, take a second to subscribe if stories like this matter to you. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now back to the story. Keely woke to the sound of her phone ringing. The screen read 6:14 a.m. Her mother's name flashed. "Mom, they're admitting Violet." Her mother's voice was paper-thin, fragile. "The fever won't break. They need to run more tests. The doctor mentioned something about her counts being wrong." Keely sat up, her heart racing. "I'm coming." "No, honey, you have to work. We need the money. I'm here with her. She's asking for you. But I told her you'd come by after your shift." After hanging up, Keely sat on the edge of her bed in the tiny apartment she shared with her mother and sister. The walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors arguing. The carpet was stained with years of neglect from previous tenants. But it was home, the only one they could afford. She got ready for work in a daze, her mind spinning. The credit card was still in her purse. She'd meant to look up the Reed Financial Group last night to find a phone number or an address, but exhaustion had won, pulling her under before she could even plug in her phone to charge. At the diner, the morning shift was chaos. 2 waitresses called in sick, leaving Keely and another server to handle the breakfast crowd alone. By the time she had a spare moment to breathe, it was nearly 2 in the afternoon. She pulled out her phone and searched for Reed Financial Group. The company website was sleek, professional. Photos of gleaming office buildings in downtown Phoenix. A mission statement about integrity and innovation. And there, on the leadership page, was Callahan Reed himself. The photograph showed a man in his late 30s, handsome in that sharp, angular way some people were. But his eyes held the same exhaustion she'd seen in person. The caption listed an impressive array of credentials. Harvard Business School, former Goldman Sachs, youngest CEO in the firm's history. There was a phone number. She dialed it with shaking hands. "Reed Financial Group. How may I direct your call?" The receptionist's voice was smooth, practiced. I need to speak with Mr. Reed. It's urgent. Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have something that belongs to him. His credit card. He left it at the diner where I work." A pause. "I see. What's your name?" "Keely Morgan." "One moment, please." The hold music was classical, something by Mozart, maybe. It felt absurd, standing in the back alley behind Mason's diner. Trash bins on one side and a delivery truck on the other, listening to orchestra music while trying to return a billionaire's credit card. "Miss Morgan." A different voice, male, clipped. "This is Derek Holloway, Mr. Reed's executive assistant. Where exactly are you located?" She gave him the diner's address. "I'll send a courier within the hour." Please hold onto the card until then. Wait, I was hoping to return it personally, to make sure it gets to him safely. Another pause, this one longer. That won't be necessary. The courier will be sufficient. But, thank you for your honesty, Miss Morgan. The courier will compensate you for your time. The line went dead. Keely stared at her phone, a mix of relief and disappointment swirling in her chest. Relief that she'd done the right thing. Disappointment that she'd never know if Callahan Reed even realized what his card meant to someone like her. What it could have done. What it represented. An hour later, a man in a suit arrived. He handed her an envelope in exchange for the credit card, verified her identity, and left without ceremony. Inside the envelope were 5 crisp $100 bills. Keely's hands shook as she counted them. $500. For returning something that didn't belong to her. For simply being honest. It wasn't enough to save Violet. Wasn't enough to fix everything broken in their lives. But it was something. It was breathing room. It was a miracle in a brown paper envelope. That night, at the hospital, she held Violet's hand while her sister slept, pale and fragile under the harsh fluorescent lights. I'm so tired. Violet had whispered earlier, her voice barely audible. Keely, I'm so tired of fighting. I know, sweetheart, but you have to keep going. We need you here. Now, watching Violet's chest rise and fall with each labored breath, Keely wondered how much longer they could all keep fighting. How many more shifts at the diner? How many more bills they couldn't pay? How many more nights praying for miracles that never seemed to come? Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Hello, Miss Morgan? This is Callahan Reed. She nearly dropped the phone. Mr. Reed. Yes. Hello. My assistant informed me that you returned my credit card. His voice was the same as she remembered, deep and measured. I wanted to thank you personally. It wasn't a big deal, she said, though they both knew that was a lie. It was to me. That card has access to accounts I'd prefer not to have compromised. He paused. My assistant tells me he left you a reward. Yes, sir. $500. It was very generous. It was insulting. Keely blinked. I'm sorry. $500 for that level of honesty? For going out of your way when you could have simply kept the card or thrown it away? Miss Morgan, I've built my career on understanding the value of things. And I can assure you, my assistant grossly undervalued your integrity. She didn't know what to say. On the hospital bed, Violet stirred slightly, her foreline catching the light. Where are you right now? Callahan asked. At the hospital. My sister is sick. What hospital? She told him. Phoenix General. Room 412. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Mr. Reed, you don't have to. But he'd already hung up. Keely sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Callahan Reed, Billionaire CEO, was coming to the hospital. To see her. Why? 19 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Keely opened it to find Callahan Reed standing in the hallway, still wearing his suit, though he'd loosened his tie. He looked even more out of place here than he had at the diner, wealth and power radiating from him in waves. Mr. Reed. Call me Callahan. His eyes moved past her to Violet, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. Your sister. Yes, Violet. He stepped into the room, and Keely was struck by how gentle his movements were, as though he was afraid of disturbing the fragile peace. What's her diagnosis? He asked quietly. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She's been in treatment for 2 years. But the costs. Keely's voice cracked. She couldn't finish. Callahan turned to face her, and in his gray eyes, she saw something unexpected. Understanding. Pain. Loss. My brother died of cancer, he said softly. 5 years ago. He was 23. I'm so sorry. He nodded once, a sharp jerk of his head, as though pushing away the memory. How much do you owe? You don't need to. How much, Keely? The use of her first name startled her, made this feel less like a business transaction and more like something personal. 62,000, she whispered. And climbing. He pulled out his phone, Type something quickly. What's your mother's name? I'll need it for the hospital billing department. Bethany Morgan. Mr. Reed Callahan. I can't let you do this. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to do it. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Keely felt exposed, vulnerable. You could have kept my card. You could have solved all your problems with one transaction. But you didn't. You chose integrity over desperation, and that kind of character is rare. It deserves to be rewarded. Tears streamed down Keely's face. She couldn't stop them. Why are you doing this? Because someone should have done it for my brother, Callahan said simply. Because I have the power to help, and that means I have the responsibility to help. And because you reminded me that there are still good people in this world. He made 2 phone calls right there in the hospital room. The first to the hospital's billing department, informing them that all of Violet Morgan's medical expenses, past and future, would be covered by the Reed Foundation, a charitable organization he'd apparently established years ago. The second call was to his personal physician, a specialist in oncology. I'm sending you a patient's file. Violet Morgan. I want a full review and a second opinion on her treatment plan. Cost is not a factor. When he hung up, Keely was sobbing openly. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. She'd held herself together for so long, been strong for Violet, for her mother, for everyone. But this kindness, this unexpected grace, shattered her carefully constructed walls. Callahan didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He simply handed her his pocket square and waited while she cried herself empty. Thank you, she finally managed, her voice hoarse. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You returned my card. He smiled, a small, sad expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be surprised by goodness. You gave me that gift, Keely. This is simply me paying it forward. In the weeks that followed, Keely's life transformed in ways she'd never imagined. Violet's treatment plan was revised under the guidance of Dr. Helena Cross, one of the top oncologists in the country. New medications, new protocols, and most importantly, new hope. The medical bills that had haunted Keely's dreams were gone, dissolved by a single phone call from a man who'd learned the hard way that money, while not everything, could change everything. But Callahan Reed didn't stop there. One morning, Keely arrived at the diner to find Marlene waiting for her with an enormous grin. Someone made a very large donation to the staff education fund, Marlene announced. Enough to send every single employee back to school if they want. Full tuition, books, everything. Keely knew immediately who was responsible. That afternoon, she received an email from Phoenix Community College. Her application, which she'd submitted years ago and long forgotten, had been reviewed. She'd been accepted. And according to the attached letter, her entire education had been sponsored by an anonymous donor. She called Callahan. You're doing too much. I'm doing exactly enough, he replied. You have potential, Keely. Raw intelligence I can see even after one conversation. Why should that potential go to waste simply because you were born without wealth? The system is broken. I'm just trying to fix my small part of it. This isn't small. To you, it's life-changing. To me, it's a rounding error in my quarterly budget. The scale is different, but the principle is the same. Invest in what matters. They began meeting for coffee. At first, it was strictly professional. Callahan wanted updates on Violet's progress. Keely wanted to thank him properly, to understand why he'd chosen to help them. But slowly, something shifted. Callahan told her about his brother, Mason, about how cancer had ravaged him slowly, how the family's wealth hadn't been enough to save him, about the guilt Callahan carried, the sense that he should have been able to do more. Money is supposed to solve problems, he said one evening, staring into his black coffee. That's what I was always taught, but it couldn't solve the one that mattered most. Mason died, and I was left with more money than I could ever spend and no one to spend it on who actually mattered. Keely reached across the table and placed her hand over his. You're spending it on people who matter now. Violet matters. The diner staff matters. Every student you're helping matters. His hand turned, palm up, fingers threading through hers. "You matter, Keely." The air between them changed, charged with possibility. "I'm just a waitress," she whispered. "You're not just anything. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You work 2 jobs, you care for your family, you're going back to school, and somehow you still found the integrity to return a credit card when keeping it would have solved all your problems. That's not just anything, Keely. That's extraordinary." She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that someone like Callahan Reed could see something valuable in someone like her, beyond gratitude or charity. But doubt lingered. "Our worlds are too different," she said. "You live in penthouses and boardrooms. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment where the heat doesn't always work." "Then maybe I need to spend less time in penthouses," Callahan said. "And maybe you'll finish school, build your career, and realize that the differences between us aren't as vast as they seem." Keely threw herself into her studies, discovering a passion for business and finance. Callahan mentored her, teaching her about markets and investments, about how money worked at levels she'd never imagined. "You have an instinct for this," he told her during one of their study sessions. "The way you analyze risk, the questions you ask, you could be excellent in this field." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to you," he corrected. "I'm just providing resources. You're doing the work." Their coffee meetings became longer, more frequent. What had started as gratitude evolved into genuine friendship, and then, slowly, carefully, into something neither of them had anticipated. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Violet had been declared in remission, a word that felt like oxygen after drowning. The family had celebrated at the hospital, tears of joy replacing years of tears of fear. That night, Callahan took Keely to the roof of his downtown building. Phoenix sprawled below them, a carpet of lights stretching to the mountains. "I have something to tell you," he said, and Keely's heart stuttered. "Okay. I'm falling in love with you." He said it simply, directly, the way he said everything. "I know the timing is complicated. I know our situations are different. But somewhere between you returning my credit card and now, you became the most important person in my life. And I needed you to know." Keely felt tears prick her eyes. Again. She'd cried more in the past few months than in the previous 5 years combined. But these were different tears. Happy ones. "I'm already in love with you," she admitted. "I think I have been since you showed up at the hospital and paid for everything without asking for anything in return. You saw me, Callahan. Not as a charity case or a project, but as a person. Do you know how rare that is?" He pulled her close, and when he kissed her, the city lights blurred into a soft glow around them. "I need you to understand something," he murmured against her lips. "This isn't about money. It's not about what I can give you or what you might owe me. This is about 2 people who found each other in the most unlikely way and decided to build something real." "I know," she whispered. "I know." But the world didn't make it easy. The Phoenix business community buzzed with rumors when Callahan Reed started appearing publicly with a woman no one recognized. A woman who worked at a diner, who drove a 15-year-old Honda, whose background check revealed nothing but modest circumstances and student loans. "Gold digger," some whispered. "Social climber," others said. The gossip reached Keely through well-meaning friends and concerned strangers. It hurt, but not as much as it might have once. She'd learned that people who'd never struggled couldn't comprehend the strength it took to survive. Their judgment said more about them than it did about her. Callahan was less forgiving. At a charity gala, when he overheard someone making a snide comment about his project girlfriend, he stopped mid-conversation with a potential investor and turned, his expression cold. "That woman," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "has more integrity in her little finger than everyone in this room combined. She's working her way through college while caring for a sick sister. She returned a credit card that could have solved all her financial problems because it was the right thing to do. And if any of you have a problem with me choosing to be with someone of actual character rather than inherited wealth, you're welcome to leave." The room fell silent. And then, slowly, someone started clapping. Then another, until the entire room erupted in applause, not for Callahan's wealth or status, but for his loyalty. "Keely," standing at the edge of the ballroom in a dress Callahan had bought her despite her protests, felt her heart overflow. He defended her publicly, staked his reputation on their relationship. That night, in the car ride home, she turned to him. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Because it's true. Every word." He took her hand. "Keely, I want you to move in with me." She laughed, surprised. "That's quite a leap from defending my honor." "I'm serious. Your lease is up next month. Violet is doing well. Your mother has been talking about getting her own place now that the medical bills are gone. Move in with me, not because of the penthouse or the view or the convenience, but because I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. Because you're my home now, Keely, and I want you to let me be yours." She looked at him, this man who'd entered her life because of a forgotten credit card. This man who'd seen her at her lowest and chosen to lift her up. This man who'd taught her that wealth without compassion meant nothing, but wealth with heart could change the world. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll move in with you." The next year unfolded like a dream. Keely graduated with honors, her business degree opening doors she'd never imagined. Callahan offered her a position at Reed Financial Group, but she declined. "I need to make my own way," she told him. "If I work for you, people will always question if I earned it. I need to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I belong in this world." He understood. More than that, he respected it. She took a position at a competing firm, worked insane hours, and quickly proved that her instincts and intelligence were just as sharp as anyone with an Ivy League pedigree. Within 6 months, she'd closed deals that made her boss's eyes water with joy. Violet enrolled in community college, healthy and vibrant and determined to become a nurse. "I want to help people the way everyone helped me," she explained. Their mother, Bethany, finally retired from her third job, the stress lines around her eyes gradually softening. And Callahan, he learned how to live again, how to see wealth not as a shield or a weapon, but as a tool to build something meaningful. He expanded the Reed Foundation, focusing on medical debt relief and education access. Keely helped him design programs that actually worked, that didn't just throw money at problems but addressed root causes. On a cool evening in November, exactly 2 years after the night Keely had found his credit card, Callahan took her back to Mason's Diner. The place looked exactly the same. Buzzing lights, cracked vinyl booths, the smell of coffee and bacon grease. Marlene was still behind the counter, though she was training to become a paralegal now, thanks to that mysterious education fund. "What are we doing here?" Keely asked, sliding into the booth where Callahan had sat that fateful night. "Closing a circle," he said. "I came here broken, lost. I just lost a major client and I was questioning everything about my life. And then I met you. You didn't meet me. I was your waitress. You were my wake-up call." He reached across the table and took both her hands. "Keely Morgan, 2 years ago you gave me back more than a credit card. You gave me back my faith in humanity. You showed me that kindness and integrity still exist in a world that often feels bankrupt of both." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and Keely's breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me because of gratitude or charity or any complex savior dynamic. I'm asking you to marry me because you're the best person I know. Because you challenge me to be better every single day. Because when I imagine my future, every single version of it has you in it." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, beautiful but not ostentatious. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and understated. "Marry me," he said. "Build a life with me. Not my money or my company or my status. Just me." Keely was crying again. She seemed to do a lot of that around Callahan Reed, but these tears were pure joy. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and across the diner, Marlene let out a whoop of joy. The handful of customers applauded. It was perfect, small and genuine and exactly right. As they left the diner that night, Keely paused at table 7, the place where everything had changed. She ran her fingers along the edge, remembering. "What are you thinking?" Callahan asked, his arm around her waist. That I found more than your credit card that night, she said. I found proof that doing the right thing matters. That honesty matters. That one choice, one small act of integrity, can change everything. He kissed her forehead. You changed me, Keely. You changed everything. They walked out into the Phoenix night, the city lights welcoming them home. And somewhere in the universe, a cosmic accountant balanced the scales, noting that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness created the biggest returns. That wealth without character was poverty of the worst kind. And that two people from different worlds could build a bridge made of trust, love, and one forgotten credit card. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony. Violet was the maid of honor, healthy and glowing. Bethany cried happy tears in the front row. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, the room remained silent, filled with people who understood that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the quality of love shared and the integrity of hearts joined. Keely Morgan became Keely Reed, and together, she and Callahan built an empire not of money, but of meaning. They funded scholarships for students like Keely had been. They paid medical bills for families drowning in debt like hers had been. They invested in people, not just portfolios. And every year, on the anniversary of the night she found his credit card, they returned to Mason's diner. They ordered the same meal he'd had that first night. They left an absurd tip. And they reminded themselves that magic still existed in the world, hidden in small acts of honesty and unexpected kindness. The city of Phoenix kept spinning, indifferent to individual stories. But in one small corner of it, two people had found each other against impossible odds. And that was miracle enough. So this is where our story ends, or perhaps where it truly begins. Because the best stories aren't about the obstacles we face, but about the choices we make when faced with them. Keely chose integrity over desperation. Callahan chose compassion over cynicism. And together they chose love. Remember that the next time you find something that doesn't belong to you, remember that honesty isn't just about what's right. It's about who you are when no one is watching. Because you never know, your one act of integrity might just change your entire life. Thanks for watching. If the story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing tales. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you'd found that credit card? Be honest. We're all friends here. Until next time, remember that kindness costs nothing, but its value is infinite.